sound of that tractor means it's time for us to get to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast. I'm Brandon Lindsay. This is Bam Bam, and we are your host. So we've got a pretty cool episode for you today. As many of you know, this industry can be extremely competitive, and I can promise you that the Charlotte area is no exception to that. Things are very competitive here in the Carolinas, and as much as we wish we didn't have competition at times, we need competition. Competition naturally drives innovation, efficiency, accountability, quality control, all good things. But healthy and legal collaboration among competitors has the power to transform the industry in profound ways. By sharing knowledge, best practices, lessons learned, competitors can collectively raise the bar for the industry, ensuring better quality, safer job sites, and sustainability. Today, we're excited to come together to set competition aside for a moment and discuss a topic that the entire dirt world can benefit from. Our guest today is a graduate of NC State University and has worked his way up from the field to project management and is now leading a company as a senior vice president for a very well-respected construction company, Wayne Brothers Companies. We're excited to have Jim Rhodes with us today to help give us the dirt. Jim, welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself on the intro that you just gave. I mean, competition is wonderful. It what drives this world forward, and I can't thank y'all enough for having me here.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to us because it was really cool the way all this got set up. Do you know the story on this one?
No, I didn't.
So Jim actually reached out, and I think you sent Caroline in our team development group a message and said, I actually wrote the quote here. You wrote, "Our industry has a huge need to focus on this topic. I know we're competitors for both people and projects, but would love nothing more than to help our industry grow from a leadership development standpoint. If I can help in any way, please let me know."
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And she reached out to me. She said, "Hey, what do we do with this?" I said, I love that. I think that's so cool. And I really admire you for reaching out and wanting to be a part of it, because for us to tackle the problems that we're facing as an industry, it's going to require that we all start working together.
Yeah, I love that, and share those sentiments that you just made. It's somebody sent me that post on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, look at this." And I was like, "This is really cool. We need to be talking about this more. This needs to be something that's brought to the forefront." And exactly what you just read, you nailed it. That's what I wrote, and Caroline responded back very quickly, which I was amazed at and was happy to be here. I think we're a week away from when I sent that message to you guys. So thank you all so much for having me.
Absolutely. No, it's good. I remember when we started doing the academy and we started doing the podcast, Brian was sharing a little bit of his story and things that he had learned, things that we were doing here. And I remember someone asking us, "Are you worried that someone's going to hear that and start doing it too?"
Yeah.
And his answer was, "No, I want that to happen. That's exactly what needs to happen."
Right.
We need to give them the playbook. We need to be a part of that. We need all of our competitors doing the same things in the industry.
That's exactly right. If we're all doing good things, the industry's getting better. And if the industry's getting better, then the people that pay us to use our services are going to do more of it, right? I mean, if every year we get a little bit worse, then it costs a little bit more to do construction, and eventually they're not going to spend any money doing construction, right?
You're right.
So we keep getting better. Rising tide lifts all boats. I love it.
Those are the people we want to be competing against, right?
Yes.
Well, you guys are no stranger to this stuff. This leadership development, workforce development, recruiting, changing the narrative on our industry. Y'all have been doing this for a long time. Matter of fact, that's part of the reason you ended up at Wayne Brothers, right?
Yeah, it really is. I met Keith Wayne, who's our founder and our CEO, at a career fair at NC State. And
how long ago was that?
That was in 2004 or 5 now.
Okay.
It must have been 2005. And, to be real honest, I knew I wanted to do dirt work. I knew I wanted to do heavy infrastructure. But just like most college juniors and seniors, I didn't really know who did it, right? So what were the big names in town? Well, they were at the senior engineering career fair, and thank goodness there was about a 20-person line to talk to that contractor. And the back of it ended right at Wayne Brothers. I turned 90 degrees. There was Keith Wayne. We struck up a conversation. He said, "Why don't you come in for an interview?" Well, I didn't know much about Wayne Brothers. But I got to their office and said, "You know what, these guys, much like you guys here, they know what they're doing. they value the right things, and I think I'd be a good fit. And been there 18 years and loved every minute of it.
That's pretty cool that he was standing there recruiting at NC State. I mean, you didn't have a lot of construction companies doing that at that time. I remember when I was graduating and you go to the career fair, it was the tech companies. When I was coming out, that was who was up there recruiting, and you didn't see a lot of construction companies. But that took some vision on his part to be up there and say, I got to find the best.
Yeah, it did. It worked out well for both me and one of my classmates, Adam Wiesner. We both graduated that year. I think Wayne Brothers was looking for what we called a project manager in training at that time. We started in '85 as a concrete business, and our grading group, which we now call the civil group, kind of grew out of that. At the end of my very first interview, I said, I saw on the website you guys do dirt work. You got any interest in hiring that? And Keith kind of looked up at the ceiling and rolled it around in his mind for a second. He said, I tell you what, let me call you back. And a couple weeks later, I came back, interviewed with a different group of people, and we're off to the races.
That's
moving
awesome.
dirt, laying pipe, building roads. It was a lot of fun.
Now, what does a project manager in training do on day one?
I tell you what, the exact same thing anybody who just comes out of orientation and shows up on the job site does. I joke around. My very first day at David Ashworth, who I reported to, and he picked me up bright and early. We met at the office. He picked me up and took me around a couple of job sites. Pretty small grading business at that time, not doing much work at all. So we could make it around to every job before lunch, really. But we spent some time. He dropped me off with a crew, and we were putting in some silt fence down in a high quality area. So we were putting in silt fence with a pickaxe and a shovel, and I was just with 5 or 6 other guys, many of which still work here, which is awesome. We share a lot of those experiences, putting in silt fence, and then hopped back in the truck, and we went down to we were building a chemical plant in Chester, South Carolina, and that's one of my favorite stories that I always tell everybody is, my very first day I was so nervous I couldn't even pull a string line. I got the dumb end of the string line. Hold this on this tack right here. And I still somehow got it tangled up in caution tape and all, it's just.
And that superintendent's sitting there saying,
you ain't going to make it.
No, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, you ain't going to make it. So that's what I tell everybody. Just first day jitters, but work hard.
Yeah.
Good character, good work ethic, show up on time, you'll make it.
We've heard that several times from leaders that have come in and talked about programs that they're implementing for internships and management training programs, that you start in the field.
Yeah.
You start in the field, and you've got to learn that. You've got to get out there and understand what you're asking people to do. You've got to work side by side with them, get dirty, understand the business from the ground up, but start in the field.
That's exactly right. It does a lot of great things. I mean, one, you learn the work, right? You have to know the work. If you want to manage the work and manage the people, you have to know it. But from an emotional intelligence standpoint, we're going to talk a little bit about that today, right? You have to know the people. No better way to get to know somebody than in a 95-degree day with a pickaxe putting silt fence in together.
Absolutely.
Right? You get to know each other pretty quick. You know who's going to work hard, who's going to not, who's going to lay down on you, who's going to work. And but then even more, you build those relationships, right? And that's what this is all based on. And so, like I mentioned, there's a few people here that on that very first day, literally showed me how to pull a string line or run a pickaxe, which you think anybody know that just jumping out of the back of a truck, but I still got those relationships with them. And we share those stories every time we interact.
The other thing that you have too, because when I started with Martin Marietta, I graduated from college, went straight to work at Martin Marietta, similar type program, management training program. They put me in the quarry. And I went to the quarry for 6 months, and for 6 months, every pocket I had was full of dust and dirt. And but I never will forget that experience, because for the next 20 years while I was working at Martin Marietta and climbing that ladder, I never forgot what it was like to be out there in the quarry. And now we're in positions where we can make decisions, and those decisions are going to impact those people out there. When we say, hey, just stay late. Now you've been there. You know what it means to stay late. Hey, come in on Saturday. Come in, I want you got to work 60 hours a week right now. Like, now you know what it is, and you'll carry that the rest of your career. I never will forget that. I'm grateful that that's how it started.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, I think if everybody in the construction industry started that way, we wouldn't have a leadership problem.
No, that's a good point.
Because of exactly the reasons that you're talking
Respect,
about.
Yeah. Well, tell me about you personally. Tell me about Jim. You got family? Where'd you grow up?
I do. I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Went to Asheville High. Still have a lot of great friends back home and spread across the Southeast. But went to school at NC State. Really one of the first times I left home. And went to school in Raleigh. Got a civil engineering degree. We mentioned I met Keith at the career fair. And started at Wayne Brothers right out of school, just ready to go to work. And loved moving dirt and laying pipe and doing all that sort of stuff. And had a good friend here who introduced me to my wife. They work together. She's an accountant. We got married. I'll get this wrong, so I shouldn't even start this sentence. But we got married in 2010. We got 3 little daughters. Twin 8-year-olds and a 7-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So, about 8 years ago, we were zombies. 7 years ago, we were zombies walking around not knowing what was going on. But it's wonderful now. We got them all on the same soccer team, and I get to coach it and play basketball. And, they get out and do all the different stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
You want me to tell you what those girls turn into in about 7, 8 more years?
Oh, man, I think that's longer than a 1-hour podcast.
Yes, it is. I have twins also. I have boy and girl twins.
You got boys.
They're 16.
Okay.
Boy and girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 2 girls. One of them's actually at NC State right now.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
So great school.
Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, so Jim, you alluded to it. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, which I was thinking about that this morning, getting ready, bam, that who would have thought that a bunch of construction dudes would be sitting around the table talking about emotional intelligence?
Talking about people's feelings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you imagine what our fathers and grandfathers would be thinking right now if they said,
a rough old construction fellers sitting here talking about people's feelings.
I was sitting here, I was driving in this morning and I was thinking, if my dad asked me, what are you doing today? I'm doing a podcast on emotional intelligence today. I don't know what he would do. He'd just shake his head and say, how in the world are you still employed?
Yep. Mine would, I've just told mine, he asked me this morning, I talk to mine every day, and he asked me this morning, I said, we got 2 more to do today. He said, what you talking about today? I said, just dirt stuff.
Just dirt stuff.
Just dirt stuff. Yeah. That's what we're going to talk about, dirt stuff.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence. And Jim, I'm hoping you can give us some insight as to how people screw this up and why it's important and where you've seen it go bad. I thought and I did this for myself because I wasn't exactly sure what the definition of emotional intelligence was. So the Harvard Business Review says emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of those around you.
Right.
It's peopling, right? And dealing with the biggest personality in the room, which is your own, and being able to understand that. So talk to me about emotional intelligence, what that means to you and your experience.
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, we've loved the study of emotional intelligence with our leaders at Wayne Brothers. It's been awesome. But before we kind of dig into it, I'll tell you just a quick story from last night. So I've listened to a number of you all's podcasts, and from time to time, and hopefully I'm not getting too far ahead, but you've asked the question, how would your spouse introduce you or describe you, right?
Yeah. We dropped that this season, but you were ready for it, so we're going to do how would your spouse introduce you?
I asked my wife last night, we're sitting there watching the Hurricanes game, and there's a million different periods because it kept going into overtime. So I said, hey, Chelsea, I'm going on this podcast tomorrow. I've heard them ask this question before, just in case it comes up. How would you describe me? And, and she kind of purses her lips and she's thinking, and I'm sitting here and I'm going like, oh, this is great. Just, loving father, wonderful husband, just great businessman, student of the Bible, good friend. I'm just going down. What are all the things she could go? She said, annoying and frustrating. And then went back to playing Candy Crush. And I went, all right, so that's over. So when we start and we talk about emotional intelligence, it's about self-awareness, right? I didn't have very much self-awareness in that moment. I'm sitting there just going down a list of things going, oh man, here's what lay it on me. I can't wait to hear all these wonderful things that you're about to tell me that I feel about myself, or hope they're aspirational things that I want to feel about myself. And she hits me with annoying and frustrating, like, all right, that would have been better just to let her watch that commercial and let us not talk about it.
What a great example right there.
And so it's perfect. So emotional intelligence, just like you said, it's our ability to really understand our emotions, how they impact others, and then leverage those to help others feel the same way and how they're impacting those around us, right? And so the things that I think are two of the, in construction, we were sitting here talking about what if our fathers and grandfathers thought we were in here talking about emotions, right?
Yeah.
There's so many of us in this industry that we still live by that. We're thinking about that hardened World War II veteran who came home from the front and was just the stoic, I'm not going to talk about it, and there's a time and a place for everything, but the vast majority of the time it's not that, right? Yeah. And the two things that I think the construction industry and those of us that are in it struggle with the most are empathy and then stress management, right? We are in a tough work environment every single day. If you let it, the stresses can just mount up to the ceiling, right? And most of us pick this industry because we like to solve problems, we like to work with our hands, we like to do things, we like to get things done, and we have a high level of stress tolerance.
Right.
And then what we don't realize is as stress mounts, if we have a very high stress tolerance, we can be living right here just below that stress tolerance, and we don't realize it. But as we approach it, all of the rest of our emotional intelligence kind of gets worse. We have less empathy. If we have a tendency to be more independent or assertive, we lean on that strength and less on the collaboration. We can be harder on people. We cannot understand where they're coming from. And so then you get into the empathy, which is most people, when we talk about empathy in the construction industry, we go being easy on somebody or being soft, or I'm old school. Well, that's not what we're talking about at all, right? When we're talking about empathy, we're talking about, hey, I can understand where Bam Bam's coming from. I can put myself in his shoes. I don't have to agree with it or even condone it. I can just understand and relate to where he's coming from, right? So I think, you can go a million different ways with emotional intelligence, especially in the construction industry. But the two that I focus on the most, especially when we're talking with our guys, is that stress management and the ability to have some empathy, right?
Yeah, that's, I want to go back to your example in the beginning, because I thought that was so good what you did, asking your wife about how she would introduce you. And, you brought up, so emotional intelligence is broken up into 4 different areas. One of them is self-awareness and self-management.
Right.
And then the other is social awareness and relationship management. So it's your awareness of you and what makes you who you are, and then managing that, and then what's going on with others and managing those relationships. So in that situation, you had a different perception of you than your wife had.
Correct.
Which I don't think she was being completely honest. But the other thing that probably got missed in that was your social awareness. Like, she was in the middle of Candy Crush. Like, she didn't want to mess with it. It wasn't a time to fluff you up and make you feel good about yourself. You were being annoying in that moment.
You nailed it at 9:30 on a Thursday while we're watching the Hurricanes, or I'm watching the Hurricanes. She doesn't care about paying me any sort of compliments. She'd rather jab me a little bit.
That's right. So your social awareness in that was you didn't take into consideration what she was doing. Right. And I love that you pointed out, that self-awareness. I read a statistic that said 95% of us think that we are self-aware, but yet only 10 to 15% of us actually are.
Right.
Have you ever done one of the 360 evaluations? Have you?
Eye-opening, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. They're humbling.
Cut you to the bone.
Have you ever done that, Bam Bam?
I've never done.
So a 360 evaluation is, how have you ever done a self-evaluation? How you do in certain areas?
Oh, yeah.
Well, imagine somebody doing that and then giving that evaluation to all your team members and people that spent time working with you each day. And they were evaluating Bam Bam.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And so you see yourself as one way. You think you're a leader and maybe a good leader, and then you get that feedback from the team, and it can be humbling.
Very, very much so. Yeah, when you start comparing where you think you are versus where others see you, we talk about that a lot, is we judge ourselves based on our intentions, right? Based on our intent.
Yep.
Other people judge us based on our actions, right? So that's self-awareness. We may think, I may go, well, I'm the best father in the world or best husband in the world because I intend to do these certain things. Well, I don't actually ever get them done. So I'm getting judged as a parent and a father, as a parent and a husband based on what I actually did, right? So I could have the best intentions in the world. So that's when we go back to that self-awareness. The closer we can get to stating what our intentions are so that others know and then aligning our actions with them, the closer then we can come to that, getting back to the self-awareness,
right.
Going, hey, here is what I'm trying to do. Y'all help me get there, right? And then there's so many times where we just don't have it for all the reasons you just listed. We're kind of in our own little world. We tell ourselves these stories. We're, as much as we hate to say it, we're the center of our own universe. And we don't realize that other people have other things going on around us. And that lack of awareness generates that lack of self-awareness and really hurts our relationships.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you hit on something that is very, very true, that we struggle in the industry with empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I know I struggle with it personally. That's probably one of the things I pray for most is empathy. Give me empathy, because I am very quick to say, you know what? I don't want to hear about your problems. I don't want to hear about that.
Right.
Just rub some dirt on it and keep moving.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But emotional intelligence requires that you meet people where they're at,
right,
and you understand how to use that to influence their behaviors and their actions.
I feel like that is one of the hardest, is that empathy,
mm-hmm,
because you get to a point where, you're like, we got to have it done this way, and that's the way I'm going to bring it to them.
mm-hmm.
And we don't think about, if they come back at us, if they, come back with another solution or another problem, if we don't check our ego and step back and look at where they're coming from, that's not hard to do, is to overlook that empathy and not know where they're coming from.
Right.
Jim, have you talked to us about, so this whole series is about how not to be a leader, right? And we took a different spin on this, and instead of sitting here telling you how to utilize emotional intelligence and all the things that you need to do, we thought about, what if we tell you the times where it went wrong?
Right.
What not to do. Right. Don't do this. If you want to be a loser in the game of leadership, this is what you need to do.
Right.
Where have you seen this go bad?
Man, I tell you what, I thought about that a fair amount, and I came up with a bunch of different stories. And as I was going through those stories in my mind, I realized, you know what, a lot of these are me, right? And a lot of our issues come from a really good spot, right? So we talked a little bit about that EQI 2.0, and that was really enlightening to me.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so very similar to an IQ, you have an EQ, right? Unlike an IQ, if I doesn't matter whether I'm a member of Mensa or the biggest knucklehead that you've ever met, my IQ kind of is what it is. I can study and get smarter, but my IQ just stays where it is.
Right.
EQ, your emotional intelligence quotient, you can work on and improve.
Can change. Okay.
Can change. And the whole point around the EQ score is, if you say an average score is 100, you don't just want to have, and it's made up of 12 or 16 different categories. You don't really want a 120 in one area and an 80 in other. You'd rather just have 100 or a 90 or 110, right? Because your strengths and your weaknesses all play to give you that emotional intelligence score. And so then I go back to your question, like, where have you seen where leadership has kind of failed in this regard? And I'll use myself as an example. When I took that for the first time, I want to say it was probably 2016. I was a young leader at Wayne Brothers, was running our grading group, but maybe had a little bit of an imposter syndrome, younger guy. Bunch of people in the industry that have been here longer than I have, and I'm trying to get things done. I'm trying to earn people's respect, trying to show them that I know what I'm doing. And if you look at my emotional intelligence scores, which I didn't have at the time, I could be a little assertive, maybe a little independent, didn't always seek out help, didn't always collaborate. And so what are the reasons for that? When we go into the emotional intelligence, we go, all right, well, I had that imposter syndrome going on. I didn't want to come ask Bam Bam, who'd been in it for a while, for help, because I need to prove to Bam Bam that I can do this, that I'm worthy, right? So then I get tied up in something and get us going down a path that I didn't really fully vet out because I didn't have the experiences that Bam Bam did. I spent 2 years out in the field, made some good relationships and learned a lot, but that's not anything compared to what Bam Bam did for 20 years, right?
Right.
So then as I took our team and our crews and our staff down a couple of different paths that probably could have been a lot less bumpy if I had engaged people like Bam Bam, then I realized, all right, and these scores really helped me realize I'm a little bit too independent over here. So what are the reasons why? And then you dig into it and you're like, okay, I kind of got this imposter syndrome going on a little bit. Well, let me engage with these others, and where my weaknesses are showing through, somebody else has a strength. So let's collaborate. Let's get together. I can use your experiences, and then we can put a little bit better plan together. And then I can use some of my scores, like the independence, to, I'm going to work late at night and go get this done, or I'm going to take on the bull by the horns, right? But we don't really think about it from that perspective. Most of the times we have a strength that becomes a weakness because we rely on it too much, right? And really, if we don't need to necessarily focus on the weaknesses, we're not trying to beat ourselves down, but we're really looking for ways we can collaborate with others and use their strengths to make a more well-rounded score of emotional intelligence, have a better team.
So this is an assessment. Do all your leaders take this assessment?
The vast majority of them do. And here's the coolest thing, you got DISC and Myers-Briggs and all these other ones, and they're all great. We've used them too, but they tell you kind of what you are. So at times it can become a crutch. You go, well, I'm a high D, or, I'm a this, or I'm a that. So you just got to deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. With emotional intelligence, it gives you a set of scores, and you put together an action plan, and you go, here's how I can improve. Here's how I can get better. Yes, this is what I am right now, and I need you all to know it so I can get your support, and we can work together to be a little bit better team. But here are the things that I'm working on, and can you help me get to where I want to be? And you kind of expand and round out those scores so that your strengths and weaknesses aren't playing against each other. What a wonderful tool to use to really develop leaders.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
That sounds powerful. So when you look at this, and I'm not familiar with the assessment, mm-hmm. is there a score where you say you're probably not a good Wayne Brothers leader?
That's another cool thing about it. So not really. Okay. It can give you some scores where you can understand. If you had somebody who was just way off the charts in one area and it really looks kind of like a round spider web. So if you can think of one that's spiked out here and another one's very concave, mm-hmm. you go, all right, maybe this is a little bit too much of a project, right? Right. But most of the time you can look at it and it really is just a tool to help you understand where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and you become more self-aware. And you start asking yourself these questions. All right, why am I doing this? Well, here's just one little indicator that would tell you why you might be. And then but in reality, these are just scores on pieces of paper. They're not going to tell you anything about you. We're pretty complex. I've been around almost 42 years now, and I've got 42 years worth of experiences that make me, and I'm the only one that's lived them.
Right.
So yeah, these scores on this paper will tell me a couple things, but I'm going to have to ask myself really hard questions to understand what goes into them and how to improve them, right? So that's the coolest thing about it. If somebody's really willing to work on themselves and really ask themselves hard questions and then answer those hard questions and figure out a way to kind of grow, that's probably the coolest part about the tool.
That is cool. That is cool. How is Wayne Brothers helping people to reach that point? If there are areas where they say, hey, I've got to improve, I've got to do that, how are you as a company helping them do that?
Various different ways. So we have a very formal process where they take the assessment, we deliver the results with somebody who's certified to deliver the real information, and then we have a few of us that know the information well enough to sit down and can do interval coaching sessions, right? But I had a pretty cool experience a week or two ago where I had a superintendent call me and just said, hey, I need to talk. It was a Friday afternoon. I said, you want me to come now? Or he said, no rush. I went down there, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday the next week. And we sat there and we walked the job, and I didn't know what he wanted to talk about, right? We walked the job and we looked over and I said, all right, what's going on? He said, well, I just kind of feel this, right? I said, all right, well, talk to me about that. So then we kind of went back to some of those conversations and scores and like, hey, do you remember, and he'd already put together an action plan where he'd been working on some of these things. So he had some of the language too, that he could use those tools to interact with me. And then I could bounce some questions off of him that he could answer, and you could see the wheel start turning, right? And we were able to just have a much deeper level of conversation because we'd had that that common language from this EQI 2.0 assessment. So I think there's a lot of formal things you can do to grow, but the relationships that it builds out of the conversations, out of these little informal conversations, are even more productive than just sitting there looking at the scores on paper.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like you're getting a lot of buy-in on that too. It sounds like everybody's grabbing onto that and pulling it into them and taking it to heart. And
I was about to ask you, do you get resistance? I mean, do you have guys that say, "Man, I'm not feeling this touchy-feely stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have time to talk to you about your emotions, Jim."
Yeah, for sure. It's not utilized by every single person in the company. But the ones that do it really enjoy it, right? And you have just like everything, you have different levels of adoption. So you have some that may get the assessment and they get the results and like, all right, that's great. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed the conversation. I'll know a little bit more about myself. You have other people that'll take the next step and put together an action plan and they'll work on it. And that becomes something that they work on, but it kind of goes on the shelf at some point. You have other people that'll take the assessment, put together the action plan, work on it, quarterly meetings, take the assessment again in 3 years, see how it's going, and then have conversations like that superintendent that I just described did. So very varying levels of adoption, but the ones that do get a lot out of it.
You get a lot out of it. Yeah. We've seen some of that. I mean, you mentioned DISC. We did DISC, and just that piece of it, there was resistance in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Why am I having to do this?
Right.
But then it was eye-opening as to some of the problems that they've been having for years. They started to begin to see why they were having those problems, where the barriers were, and how to overcome them. This is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that you came out when I said, "Where have you seen this thing go wrong?" And you said many of the examples are mine.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, they are. And we could spend what times we could spend till 5 o'clock or even later today talking about all the different things that I've messed up. But my wife actually shared with me a quote last night that I really like, and it said, if I could go back in time and change things, I'd still make the exact same mistakes. I'd just make them sooner, right? We learn from those mistakes. So that's what we all kind of have to give ourselves a little bit of grace here too, as well as others. I mean, that's a big part of it. We can give ourselves some grace. We got to give others grace. We understand none of us are perfect. We all have experiences that are different. None of us know what each other's exact experiences are. But the more that we can interact with each other, get to know each other, build those relationships, the closer we'll come to understanding each other's experiences. And then when you do blow up or I blow up or we have something where we kind of really fumble the football, there's going to be somebody there that kind of understands where we're coming from and goes, all right, well, I can understand how Jim got there. He's been through this before, and that really set him off there, right? So that's one of the best things about these emotional intelligent conversations. It's been a stigma for so long. We wouldn't talk to our fathers, grandfathers, whoever else about that in the past. We do now. Right. And hopefully we're talking to each other about it because that's how relationships are built. It's based on trust. And that trust starts from a vulnerability, right? If I'm always closed off, I'm never giving trust, I'm never earning trust. If I'm a little bit vulnerable and go, hey, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with this mindset or emotion or thing, and somebody's there for me, we're spiraling up in the right direction at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the empathy. I was looking, so global leadership development firm DDI ranks empathy as a number one leadership skill. Empathy. And then we have been we've been utilizing extreme ownership. We do a lot of coaching with that. Extreme ownership says that number one skill is humility. Number one quality is humility. So you combine humility, the ability to say, hey, I've got issues. Some of these mistakes that are being made, they're mine. I need to improve in these areas. You combine that with the empathy to be able to see that in others and to help them and to coach and mentor. That's powerful. That's a game changer.
It really is. I love golf, and golf is a game of opposites. You swing right to go left. You swing down to go up, to make the ball go up. And a lot of what we're talking about is the same way. That extreme ownership, that story that Jocko Willink tells about when he's like, all right, we just had that blue on blue incident. This is the absolute worst possible thing that could happen. I'm about to go in here in front of my commander and I'm about to tell him what goes wrong. our natural instinct is to figure out some sort of issue that was not our fault
Blame it on
and blame it.
Blame it on anything or anybody else. Yep.
And
Whose fault?
And in our mind, it's just intuitive that is the way that you get out of the issue. In reality, it's the complete opposite. He went in, he took ownership. He owned it. This was my issue. And all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, but he didn't lose his job. And then eventually got promoted and he's moving through the ranks. And the same thing with vulnerability. How do we project strength as a leader? We think it's because we're that hard, tough, beat your hand on the table leader, when in reality, we project strength through vulnerability and opening ourselves up to others and having those conversations. And then we build the relationships that people understand, well, that's a real strong person there. So just a game of opposites. Leadership is complete opposite of what we intuit things to be.
Yeah, you've got this vision of that leader in your mind, and yet the things that are going to make you the better leader are things like humility, empathy, grace, compassion.
Yep.
It's totally different than what we used to think. Huh?
It is. And thinking about, this conversation today, I've seen leaders lead by intimidation. And you find yourself, whenever you're under them, you find yourself picking out these little points. You're trying to find good, okay, well, he did get us this and he did give us that, but, oh God, here he comes, look busy.
Yeah.
And you try to pick the good stuff out and maybe in some ways hope that outweighs the, oh God, here he comes complex, which is terrible. Right. And you shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't put people through that as leaders. Yeah. We should provide, be there for them, listen to them. Right. A guy the other day said, love on them, a little bit, and that's exactly what this is about.
But the piece that's missing is you got to be aware of it.
Yes.
Yep.
You got to be aware of it. You got to be aware of it in yourself, and you got to be aware of what's going on in others. And I think that's where we screw this thing up sometimes. We're running so hard, and we've got this perception of who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be that we just miss that.
Absolutely. With DISC, I was always taught, look at everybody else.
Right.
Because I come from emergency services, fire and police. And we were always taught, look at everybody else, don't look at yourself. And then I come in here, and heck, the first couple of months I'm here, I'm sitting in this class, and I'm like, what is DISC? And then they open up this whole new round to me, and now I'm able to look at me and understand that. And so it just, it kind of, it's steps. And I feel like that EQ stuff you're talking about, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it'll cut you open just like those 360s will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do a 360 on you and I.
Okay.
After this.
Okay.
You're going to evaluate me, and I'm going to evaluate you.
Okay. You're going to, like.
Be nice.
Okay.
Be nice. Jim, we're going, this is getting serious, so we're going to relax a little bit. We're going to have some fun, and then we're going to dig back into it because I want to ask you how this thing plays out.
Yeah.
If for that person that has no emotional intelligence, what does that story end up? So I want to come back to that. Okay. But first, Bam Bam, he's really good at coming up with these games. Okay. And so he's got a good one for us today.
Uh-oh. Now I'm more nervous than I started.
Oh, yeah, you probably should be. Okay, so this game is called 5-second summaries.
All right.
Okay, before you see a small stack of cards. Right. Each one of you going to take turns pulling a movie title.
Okay.
Okay. You as soon as you pull the card out, you got 5 seconds to describe it. You can't say the movie name. You got 5 seconds to describe it, and then the other person has to guess the movie.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you want to,
what'd you call this game again?
this is called 5-second summary.
All right.
So I'm going to pick. Okay. I'm going to draw a card and describe it without saying the title, and Brandon's going to guess it.
Yes.
And what can we not say? We can't say.
You can't say the title of the movie.
The title.
You can't say. You can't say the title or the actors' names.
Actors' names.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you good with movies?
I hope so.
We're about to find out.
So is this you too? Because I'm not going to be. I may not be able to judge it.
What?
You got to be involved somehow, right?
Yeah, you do it. We'll go around. We'll all draw one.
I thought maybe I was the game show host.
Well, you can do that too. We'll all draw one.
I'll draw
Bob
one
Barker.
as well. Okay.
5 seconds, huh? I'll keep the timer.
Who's going first?
That's your call.
All right, y'all look like you're both. I'll draw the first one, and I'll take the first.
I got
bullet.
you. As soon as you look, we start the clock.
So I'm going to draw it, and then I have 5 seconds to describe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You ready? Here we go. All right. Robots with AI in the
Stop.
future.
RoboCop.
That's a
I
great
am-
one. I love that one.
iRobot. What is that with Will Smith? I don't know.
It is iRobot.
Is it iRobot?
Yeah. Is it?
That is amazing how fast 5 seconds goes.
It is. It is.
I
You
got
actually
4
were
words
five
out.
and a half seconds.
Yeah,
So it's,
I got to have a second more.
Did we get it?
More. It's Terminator. Close. Oh, I love RoboCop.
Hey, you were close. You were all over it. You were all over it. All right, here, start the timer. I'll pull one. Ready?
Yeah.
You made a time machine out of a DeLorean.
Back to the Future.
Boom. Yes, sir. 4.81. Come on, man,
I'm glad we all grew up in the
Come
same
on,
era.
come on.
I'm just going to tell you this ain't going to be good. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
He's green. His wife is green. She was a
Shrek.
princess.
Oh,
Got it.
I forgot the timer. Yeah, but I'm going to give you that one because I let it go.
Okay.
Well,
It's hard to
my
watch
kids,
that
there's a-
timer.
I was
Yeah.
going with the Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
My
His
mind
wife
went,
was the whole.
well, then you messed me up with the wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You messed me up with the
You
wife.
going
My
next.
turn. Ready?
Yep.
They strap grandma to the top of the.
Throw
Time.
them off from the
Time.
train.
That's it.
I wish
that's it.
Lampoons.
National
Okay.
Lampoons. They strap grandma to the top. I couldn't get Station Wagon out. I was trying to
Like,
say
how
minivan.
many movies where grandma gets strapped? I thought you had it. I thought you had
Well,
that.
I was thinking that, but said the other. But yeah, hey,
Oh,
All right,
man.
here you go,
Great,
Tommy.
great
yeah,
movie.
that's
go.
my excuse anyway.
You ready?
Right.
Near, far.
Titanic.
That was terrible. Come on.
Sorry. That's it. Please cut that. We are not airing that.
That was
Absolutely
wonderful.
not.
I've still never seen that movie, but that
That was it.
I will go by the teller machine.
you did the hand. That's what we knew what was going on.
My
That's-
wife will not let
okay.
me carry money, but I will go by the teller machine if you do not cut.
Oh, my God.
So it's my turn.
No more games, Bam Bam.
God, this is
You ready?
all right. You ready?
Yeah. Go.
I don't even know. I ain't never seen this one, but it's.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you stopped me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see you crack my back. The Matrix.
The Matrix.
doing
You've
it
never
when
seen The Matrix?
No, I ain't never watched
Oh, yeah. Keanu Reeves.
it.
Yeah. That is an older one, but yeah, that was going to be hard to guess.
Yeah. He's a
All
local,
right.
isn't he?
We got a couple more.
My
Yeah,
turn.
we got
Yep.
a couple more.
All right.
Go.
Phone home.
E.T.
Boom.
3 seconds. 3 seconds. All right.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough to beat. All right. Here we go. Favorite Christmas movie? Yippee-ki-yay.
Oh, Die Hard.
Oh, yeah.
I almost finished the sentence. You got to be careful out here.
Yeah, I know. I had to stop.
I got a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It is
we
a
got
Christmas
one more.
movie. I
All
agree
right.
with that.
This is on
This
me.
is you. Finish strong, Bam Bam.
Ready?
Yep. Go.
Okay. Mafia.
Goodfellas.
Got it.
Wow.
Smoked it.
Wow.
One of the best ones.
That's a
We
good
got
one.
more. We got one more.
Yeah, might as well. Go ahead. All right,
Was it
Jim.
me?
Last one. Here we
ready?
go.
Cornfields. Baseball.
Field of Dreams.
Oh,
Nice job.
good.
Bam Bam. Good job.
Good game. Great movies, too.
Yeah.
Near.
Your brain is singing more.
That
Keep
was
'em coming.
awful.
Keep 'em coming.
That was awful. Jim, thanks for playing the game with us. You were a good sport on that. You actually did
fun one.
really good on that. We only had a couple that we missed.
Yep. And it has been an honor co-hosting this show with you, Celine.
Celine. So, Jim, going back to it, I want to round this thing out for those that are saying, all right, how to not be a good leader. That leader that you've got in place that does not have the ability to be empathetic or manage stress, How does that play out?
I'll tell you
What
what.
does that look like?
It looks like a lot of people around you not smiling, right?
Nobody's happy.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about what does a good up and coming leader look like, and we go, all right, well, they're dirty and they're engaging and they're happy. But if you say what does it look like for somebody who does not have the emotional intelligence you need at this time, right? Because we can always improve. That's one of the great things. If they don't have it at this time, it looks like people who are frustrated when you come around, right? People who don't feel like that they are understood when you're having conversations or listened to, right? That transactional relationship. There's a lot of us we're so busy. Anytime in this industry, we're blessed. It's wonderful. You say, hey, how's work going? Busy, man.
Busy.
Just busy.
Everybody says
Wide
And when you're so busy, it really can force you, or not force you, but cause you to start having very transactional relationships, right? Bam Bam needs something from me, and he needs to get on about his rat killing for the rest of the day. Jim, I need this. Here you go. And then he's off to the races.
Yep.
Right. And me, as I have, like we talked about earlier, I have a high independent score, right? It'd be very easy for me to go off into my office, do things all day. All right, I need something from Bam Bam. I come out, hey, Bam Bam, I need this. He gives it to me, and then I'm back, right? That transactional relationship. Relationships are debits and credits. And just like a bank account, if you run out of money before you run out of spending, you're gonna be it's gonna be a bad day, right? In these relationships, you have to deposit every single day because there's gonna be a time where you need to draw. And if you deposit enough, if you engage enough, then you're not gonna overdraw that relationship. It's gonna be an abundant. But if you just are all the time withdrawing, it ain't gonna last very long. Either you're gonna be gone or they're gonna be gone, and we can't do things by ourselves.
Somebody shared some advice that they had received one time. It was a friend of mine. He told me this last week. He said, if people exhale when you leave the room, you may be lacking some self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
If people relax when you leave, something's wrong.
You're exactly right.
So
My wife exhales.
Would you leave?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we could give her that. Man.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
needed a break.
Yeah.
Jim, you mentioned earlier that the industry, there's a lot going on in this industry, and there is a good bit of collaboration. You even mentioned Build Wit. What are you excited about, what you're seeing that's happening within the industry right now?
I'll tell you what, we're in a great spot from the region that we work in, right? There's a lot of people that want to move here. There are a lot of businesses that feel like this is the right business climate to be in. So because of that, it's producing a lot of volume of opportunities for all of us. I'm really excited about that. But one of the things that I really like the most is that whether it's a generational thing or whether it's just kind of the arc of the way things are flowing, that like this, we're collaborating more. I mean, we're competitors. We're probably bidding against something today with each other, right? There's a client who's out there outside these walls right now trying to decide whether we're going to use Wayne Brothers or Hoopah. And we put that aside and we're figuring out how can we, as two competitors, but a part of this industry, make it better. Build Wit is doing, I think they are setting the tone for that.
They are.
I'd like to think that without that mindset that they've kind of put forward, that I still reach out to Caroline and hope to get on this podcast with you all. But who knows if I do or not. When they're talking about the dirt world and trying to improve it, and everybody recognizing that this just isn't our grandfather's world. We came and we just did a job and went home, right? That it's going to take a lot more than that. And that we spend the vast majority of our lives with the people we work with, when we're realizing that there's some real quality of life things that go into that and we're trying to improve it, I think that's what gets me the most excited.
It is a fun time. It's a fun time in the industry, and for that reason, the collaboration that's taking place is exciting. That people are finally waking up to it and saying, "Hey, we got to do. We all have the same problems.
Yeah.
We're all dealing with people problems. We're all dealing with morale and leadership issues. We can tackle these things together. But the other thing that I love that's happening is we're telling our story."
Yeah.
We're starting to brand our industry for the first time. You guys have been doing cool things since
Yeah.
Way back
85,
2005 when they came back and hired you or recruited you at NC State. Y'all were doing some pretty progressive things, but nobody was telling that story.
Right.
And now we're telling the story, and we're taking control of the narrative of our industry.
Right.
It's no longer a backup option.
That's it.
Plan A.
I tell you what, we created this little nonprofit that's called Regroup that is really focused on, the mission is to increase economic mobility in our community and decrease the skills gap in the construction trade. And so when you talk about that, like you just said, it used to be when I was going to school, hey, you got to go to college. If you can't go to college, then you can figure out something else, right?
Right.
Now, it is a better option right now, currently, for the vast majority of people. It is a better option to get into the trades and start making money.
Yep.
Because not only can you get rid of the student debt and get some real world experiences and start building those relationships, but good companies like Hoopall, like Wayne Brothers, like others, will pay for you to go to school if it ever becomes the right thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had a little fundraising event this past weekend, and one of the things we talked about, one of the stories that got shared, was breaking the cycle, right? So if we're really talking about a win-win for our community, for the businesses, for the people who pay for construction to get put in place, breaking that cycle and helping people who would not have otherwise been engaged in this industry or maybe even engaged in the workforce at all get into this industry and make a good living so that they can raise a good family and create a cycle that's positive as opposed to negative, we're really talking about win-win-win then, and that's huge.
And those stories are out there. They exist. You're one of these stories. Bam Bam's story. I mean, we've all got these stories where people have been able to achieve their goals in this industry.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
110%. Yep. It's not, it's doctor, lawyer, you got to go to school, nurse, medical field. But if you're going to get in the industry, if you're going to get anywhere in the industry, it seems to be swinging towards come out of school, find you somewhere to go to work that cares about you, it's got good leadership, go to work there and start your career.
Yeah, and make great money. You're not giving up anything
absolutely
from a quality of life standpoint.
No.
If you think it's good now, you wait till this episode drops.
Absolutely.
It's going to, you talk about breaking the cycle. We're getting ready to
change the world.
There we go. Making the dirt world a better place.
Jim, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, for being willing to come out and do some collaboration and to do something that helps the dirt world become a better place.
Thank y'all. I can't thank y'all enough. I really enjoyed being here, and y'all have a wonderful place to do this from.
Well, I imagine after your wife hears this episode, she's going to have some different adjectives to use when describing you.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I won't ask.
Yeah, you learned on that one, didn't you?
Jim, thank you so much. It was great to have you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Brandon.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.